Hello, and welcome to the Beyond Borders podcast, the podcast that explores topics related to international trade. This podcast is brought to you by Buckland. For over 70 years, Buckland has been working to help companies across the world experience global trade in a better way. As a customer-focused company, we provide you with a single source of unmatched customs brokerage, trade-managed solutions, freight forwarding, trade technologies, and warehousing and distribution services. I'm your host, Jenny Kaus, Corporate Marketing Manager at Buckland, and today I am speaking with our special guest, Sarah Hebert. Sarah is an account manager at Buckland and holds her Certified Customs Specialist designation in Canada and in the United States, and she's also a Certified Trade Compliance Specialist. Wow. So Sarah has a decade of experience in the industry and has worked with a wide range of importers across industries. Thank you for joining me yet again on the podcast, Sarah.
Thank you for having me, Jenny. I'm very excited to be here with you again today.
Great. And so Sarah is joining me by phone, and we are going to be discussing an interesting topic, and it is the GST direct payment program in Canada, as well as the related K84 reporting, because importers and customs brokers are required to remit payments for GST in a timely manner. And in order to facilitate this, the Government of Canada has established this GST direct payment program. And GST, of course, stands for Goods and Services Tax. So I'm wondering if we can kind of start with a base level understanding of the GST direct payment program, Sarah.
Absolutely. The government came up with the GST direct payment program to assist importers to have the option to pay their GST directly to the Receiver General themselves without any third parties paying it on their behalf. In order to use this GST direct payment program, an importer must register for the option. Their customs broker can assist with this process in order for the CBSA to be properly notified. The importer would then pay all of their GST directly to the Receiver General on a monthly basis based off the monthly K84 statement by the last business day of the month. And what's a little bit important to note here is the program that we're talking about is the GST Direct program specifically for GST on your imported goods. Mm-hmm. So every company has their GST that they have to pay. This is in conjunction with that, but separate from that. So instead of paying their GST to their customs broker, who would then pay it to the Receiver General on their behalf, and continuing to pay their regular GST on non-imported goods on the regular basis, they would be making payments together.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. That really helps to make it a bit clearer because, of course, we all hear the term as Canadians GST all the time. It's part of our daily life, but there's GST in different areas. So it's important to know this is directly related to imported goods for importers. And the other thing that you mentioned was K84, and that's one of the things we're going to be talking about. And so I think this is kind of a good segue into explaining what that means, K84, because for those in this industry, that's a term you hear thrown around all the time. I mean, I certainly hear it all the time at Buckland. But Absolutely. Can you help us understand what that means?
So K84 definitely is a term that is thrown around. And when you start in the industry, you hear it and you think, I should know what this is, but I'm too afraid to ask because everybody else is saying it like it's their middle name.
Yes.
So K84 is the term that is used for the CBSA accounting period. So the CBSA accounting period runs from the 25th of the month to the 24th of the following month. Gotcha. Payment for all the duties and taxes for all transactions within CBSA during this time period are the K84 transactions, and they are all payment for these goods is due on the last business day of the month. So you would receive a report that runs from the 25th of one month to the 24th of the following month, and duties and taxes for all goods on those reports are due by the last business day of that month. So it's a very small window. It can potentially be a 5-day window.
Oh, wow. That is absolutely a very tight turnaround.
Absolutely.
So who is responsible for that K84 accounting that happens?
The short story is anyone who transmits customs entries directly to customs is responsible for their K84 accounting for the transactions that they process. So if you are an importer that does their own transactions directly with customs, you are responsible for your K84 accounting period. If you are an importer that utilizes a customs broker, ideally, the customs broker is responsible for that K84 accounting period. They will provide the importer with the report, and the customs broker is responsible for making payment on your behalf, depending on your contract, depending on what route you chose to go.
Sure. Okay. Great. So kind of further to this, I just have another couple questions. The K84 monthly summary statement. This is, we just kind of talked about that. Are you able to give a bit more detail there?
Absolutely. The K84 monthly summary statement, the simplest way to think of it as your credit card statement. Mm-hmm. This statement is a report that's going to show the importer all of the transactions that were accounted for with CBSA on their behalf during that time period. Okay. It's going to give a breakdown of the transaction. It's going to show you your duties payable, your GST payable, and if there's any other charges. Do you have any surtaxes on there? That is what that is. So it shows you in a snapshot everything that you owe to the government and all import activity that you declared with the government in that K84 monthly period.
Great. Okay. And then in terms of actually paying the amount due on that K84 statement, how does that take place?
So there's a variety of ways that can be paid. And this is, again, where it's very important to know your contract with your customs broker, because each contract can be slightly different. Depending on the importer's agreement with their customs broker, the most common practice is for importers to pay their GST directly themselves to the receiver general under the GST Direct program that we're talking about, and then to pay duties and all other charges to their customs broker, who will remit to CBSA on their behalf. Mm-hmm. Another option is for the importer to pay the full amount owing to their customs broker, who will remit payment on their behalf. One key thing to note is even though you're getting a K84 statement that says this is your GST, these are your duties, these are any taxes additionally, while we can pay them to your broker, GST is payable to the receiver general, duties are payable to the CBSA.
Gotcha. Okay. That's a good clarification as well. What are some of the benefits that you would say of having this K84 monthly summary statement and going this route of the GST Direct program?
One of the biggest benefits, Jenny, is you have a monthly statement of all of your transactions centralized in one document. As we know, it's 2020 now. We're bombarded with different reports and documents all over the place. Yeah. If you are a heavy importer and you have a lot of transactions with CBSA on a monthly basis, this is a great little tool to look at and say, here's all my transactions. Here's my monthly payables. It's easier to monitor your transactions. It's easier to monitor your duty payable, your GST payment across one statement.
Great. Yeah, that definitely sounds like it would simplify things a great deal, and as well just kind of, rein it in and make that simpler, which, I mean, we could all use more of that in our lives.
Absolutely.
Do you have any tips maybe on this topic that you would be able to share with our listeners before we close out?
Absolutely. We have a few tips that we could share. The key thing to note is that there is a very short turnaround for your payment. So the reports are ran and ready for the 24th of the month. Typically, they go out to importers on the 25th, early in the morning or overnight on the 24th. You only have until the last business day of the month to make payment. So, for example, in months like February, it becomes a little bit tight. So a key there would be make sure that you have the resources internally set aside to take a look at that report and get that payment turnaround as quickly as possible. It's going to come the same time every month. Mark it in your calendar, be prepared for it.
Yeah.
Another thing to consider is that you have someone who's going to take a look at that report. Just because it was done and accounted for, maybe there's some errors on it. Maybe you get one and you say, hey, what is the $6,000 duty? And you realize that there was a typo on the commercial invoice that was sent for clearance. And instead of $60,000, the vendor keyed in $600,000. So make sure you're taking a look at it. Make sure you know your product. Make sure you know how customs works, the duties, the taxes. The more educated you can be, the better.
Great.
The last tip, make sure the last tip that I would recommend is having your company set up for wire transfer payments instead of mailing checks. This will allow you additional time to review and minimize the time for the checks to actually go where they're supposed to go. And you have immediate visibility when they're received.
That's a really good tip. That's very helpful. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Because anything we can do to certainly make this process easier, we want to do. And it's kind of funny with the timing of this because next month, being February, we're actually in a year where it's a leap year. So we have an extra day.
We have an extra day. Exactly.
People must really look forward to that when that happens, just making February a little easier than usual.
Absolutely.
And I will say we will add a link in the show notes as well for the website for CBSA registration, accounting, and payment for commercial goods that goes into a bit more detail on these topics. So we'll include that in the show notes. So feel free to check that out if you're looking for more information on this topic. We also have a learning guide on this topic. So if you're interested in what we've been talking about today, we have a bit of I would say even a summary of the conversation in the learning guide section of our website. So feel free to check that out and I'll include that in the show notes as well. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me to talk about this topic today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jenny.
And I'm sure you'll be back again soon to talk about more of these topics. But until next time, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's the Beyond Borders podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to our guest, Sarah Hebert. If you're looking for more resources related to international trade, check out buckland.com and click on the learning section across the top of the website. Here, you'll find a range of resources, including learning guides, webinars, and podcasts. Our downloadable learning guides include Incoterms charts, common trade terminology, how to avoid border delays, and many more. We also host live monthly webinars and invite you to sign up online to secure your spot for an informative presentation followed by a live Q&A session. The best way to keep up to date on all of these resources that I've just mentioned is through our weekly newsletter. We send out a newsletter every Wednesday containing our latest information for you and a roundup of the latest trade news headlines delivered right to your inbox. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out through our website's Contact Us page. You can reach out through Twitter, where our handle is @BucklandTweets, on our LinkedIn company page, or on our Instagram @BucklandInsta. And you're always welcome to reach out to me at marketing@buckland.com. Thank you for listening to the Beyond Borders podcast, and be sure to tune in again and subscribe for more great conversations about importing, exporting, and everything else in the world of logistics and international trade.